Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the morning meeting. Thank you for joining. Dan, Sean, and I will race through the day. Lots going on, and then kick things around, and then take your questions if you're here on the two-way platform. Like Charles, for instance, already has his hand up. Thank you, Charles. Please raise your hand if you'd like to be part of the conversation. If you're watching on X or on YouTube, don't raise your hand and don't put smack in the chat. I will say, for those of you who are new, this meeting is modeled after the network news division's morning meetings, where they meet in the morning and do exactly what we do, run through the day. But we have our surprise O. Henry twist where you get to ask questions. So we welcome you here. In the spirit of peace, love, and understanding, which imbues everything we do, I'll point out one thing that each of us was right about yesterday. Sean told you yesterday, and you wouldn't have heard it anywhere else, that don't get your, what's that expression, your knickers in a bunch over the tariff ruling, because stuff would happen. And of course, by the end of the day, not only had the administration come up with 72 contingency plans, but they'd also had a judge's ruling, Court of Appeals ruling, that the whole thing's delayed. So Sean was right about that. Dan was right to hitch his wagon to Boccia and his colleagues at the group chat, because it's off to a boffo start, not just editorially, but also good numbers. So Dan, congratulations. And I was right, of course, that we would go to Indiana for Game 6. So, gentlemen, congratulations. Dan, how did it go
my
yesterday?
Knicks blue on today. Yeah, absolutely.
How did it go yesterday? Your first episode.
Did Knicks have a blue? Is that's not a thing? There's no Knicks blue.
I'm sorry. Are you
North Carolina?
The show went awesome. It went great. It was terrific. Thank you to everyone who watched or logged in. Great participation. Thank you, Professor Kenny, who was nicknamed Mr. K by Emma, which I like, or Prof K. Sorry, Prof K. But it was terrific, and couldn't be more grateful and excited for the future.
All right,
yeah, I got to tune in to some of it. I'll tell you the thing that I think is amazing, Dan. And we all know this to some extent. Booking a guest is always a challenge. Getting 5 people together like that, that was a huge feat, and so it's cool to. But you guys interacted great discussion, and it's fun to see the range of political, because we have this talk on this platform every morning. Every time you go out, people say, "I wish we could have these discussions, but we can't." We do it every morning, but then you saw you guys. I mean, that's a big spectrum of political ideology. So done very well.
Dan, remind everybody when the show's on.
4 p.m.'s on Thursday. Yeah, going forward will be every Thursday at 4 p.m.
And I will tell you, having been involved in the launch of various shows, the first episode, you usually look back and say, "Yeah, like that really was the first episode." Your first episode was fantastic. You can watch it now on YouTube if you didn't see it live. And again, Thursdays at 4. Sean, how is it that you're the only one in all of the media who said yesterday, don't overreact to this decision? How did you know and no one else did?
I'm the former assistant U.S. trade rep. I mean, there's a revenue piece that I mean, just to be clear, there's 2 caveats. I'm not the stay that was put in place. I mean, there's a problem with the revenues that they're going to have to give back. I mean, to refund these things. So I actually am not. I don't know. I still think that the president has the authority. I'm not that confident in how the ultimate court. But as I mentioned, you got 122. 232 and Section 301 that all allowed other trade remedies, and they alluded to that yesterday to some degree. But it's there. If the court were to even rule against them in the future, how they refund tariffs is a nightmare. So I think that there's a lot more to come to this, but because part of this is just the hole that they're in is not easy to get. I mean, from a judicial standpoint. So the president's got a strong hand to play on this, I think, on multiple levels. So anyone who got excited about the tariffs going away yesterday, you had a couple hours to celebrate.
Dan asked me how I knew the Knicks would win Game 5.
Mark, how did you know?
Chalamet has never had a bad date. And he had a date at the game last night. And of course, if the Knicks had lost, it would have been a bad date. So that's how I knew. All right, schedule.
Mark,
we're in baseball season. Basketball's over.
Have you bought tickets or secured for Game 7? Do you go there, or do you?
I will go if a member of the two-way community invites me. Otherwise, I'll watch it on TV. So please, doors open.
And please let us know what the costs are. I can't. I mean, if people were paying 100 and change to go to that Celtics Knicks game, I got to imagine.
If there's a game 7, I will tell you right now, it will be the highest ticket
Yeah.
price in NBA history.
That's why I think we're getting ours today, just on the, you might as well.
What do you mean you're getting them? Like, what do you mean you're buying? Like,
yeah.
StubHub.
Our nose will bleed, but it's fine. We'll bring tissues.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
get that.
President's got a really interesting schedule today. Let's take a look. 1:30, press conference with Elon Musk. Again, in the history of the United States, Donald Trump breaking norms. No one's ever announced a presidential press conference with a staffer in the Oval. It's never occurred. There's never in the history of the United States been a White House daily schedule that's had that on it. So 1:30, and again, we'll have full highlights and analysis on two-way tonight. Then later in the afternoon, he leaves for Andrews, where he will fly to Pennsylvania. This is another really interesting thing. He's doing an event at U.S. Steel at the Irvin Works facility. And this is fascinating. This was a deal the president basically opposed as a candidate and now is in favor of and embracing. We've talked on two-way with Selena Zito about the significance of this, not just in Pennsylvania, but in the several other states where U.S. Steel has facilities. So this is going to be quite an event. And again, he's not running for re-election. Normally, if you see a politician who's president or might run for president go to Pennsylvania and do a jobs event, you'd say, well, they're playing to the voters. But he's going all in here, and he's still interested in the battleground states, maybe to help Vance, who knows. Then he goes back to the White House. Don't know what JD Vance is doing today. Pete Hegseth is going to Singapore, giving a big speech about the region. House and Senate are out. University of Michigan consumer sentiment data comes out at some point today. Okay, let's talk, Dan, about the Musk Trump press conference. If you were staffing it, not that these two guys are easily controlled, but what's the message? Like normally if you do a press conference, you're trying to drive a message, not just like pat your friend on the back. So what's the message that if you were the staffer and they say to you, okay, Dan, tell us what the soundbite should be about? What would you be going for?
I mean, I think they will say that they accomplished that the goal was to shake up the system to highlight versus kind of root out, let's say, waste, fraud, and abuse. They'll inflate the number about how much it was. But I think it will be a message of we're unified, we accomplished a goal, and we're going to continue to work together. That would be kind of the neat sequence that is the best case scenario. I think the other part of it is they both need each other. Musk needs to remain. I mean, he's one of the largest contractors to the U.S. federal government. He probably has desires to have other businesses. And Trump does not want to lose that money. He controls X, which is not insignificant for Trump. So, I think they'll say all the right things. The media will try to, cause mischief. And I'm sure they'll both tee off a few times at the media.
Sean.
I love the notion of thinking that anyone's staffing this, either one of those guys. I mean, I think you'd probably get yelled at if you walked in and said, Mr. President, I want to go over the message for today. Look, I agree with Dan. I think the message is simple. We set out to shake up Washington, to save the American people, to get our government back in a better working order, to root out waste, fraud, abuse, inefficiencies, duplicities. And we've started down that path, accomplished great things, and the work continues. I will say to this discussion, I will be fascinated. I think that's May where it starts. I think the fun game today will be to pick what the sound bites coming out of it are, because I have a feeling that we end up talking more about Russia post press conference or something like that. Maybe, but we're not, or tariffs. But the Elon Musk headline, I would imagine, is 3 or 4 coming out of this presser. I think there'll be so much more news on other subjects that the goodbye to Elon isn't in the top 3.
So do you think, does Trump talk about those other subjects? Does Elon jump in if they start talking about these other, because he has opined on so many of these other subjects and not always in alignment with Trump?
So I think he will make his comments if asked about Doge. And look, you look at the pool today. You've got Newsmax, you got Merit Street Media, my old colleague Lindsay Keith. There is part of what you have to look at is how they've set this up. I think they were very smart about who they put in the pool today. And you will have other people. My guess is Brian Glenn is there from Real America's Voice. I mean, they will bring in extended reporters. And so if you think about stacking the deck, if you will, or creating an environment where some of the questions will come to that direction, that's smart. That's the staffing that can be done right now to make sure the right people are in the room so that the questions actually get a little bit more on point and don't get off. So I will say, I think who they call on matters. Elon will talk about Doge, but my guess is that he will get asked about tariffs. He'll get talked about what's going on, and that will be number one. You've got a Russia-Ukraine element, the big beautiful bill, and so I think that I will be intrigued to see how much Doge we're talking about at 6 o'clock.
Yeah. So two more Elon things. One is I normally don't make predictions, but I did my newsletter this morning, so I'll make them here. I predict that it's rare to see Donald Trump hug a man in public. I predict they'll hug, and I predict Elon will cry.
Okay, here's let me here's where I'll hedge on your bet. Trump, if you ever watch him in an Oval Office setting, if he's sitting at the behind the Resolute desk, he doesn't get up. If he's standing and if there's a podium, like he participates in those swearing ins, etc., then I'm leaning. I'll say it's more of a fist bump. But if he's sitting, he will not get up.
But there's no way he's going to be sitting. It's too awkward. Like they're going to do a press conference where Trump sits behind the desk and Elon stands over his shoulder.
Yep.
It's too awkward. I predict they stand. I predict a hug, and I predict tears by one of them, not by both of them. The other thing is the Wall Street Journal has led the way in coverage of Elon Musk's personal life, both his drug use, alleged drug use, and his relationships with the mothers of his many children. The New York Times picked today to run their version of the story. Let me show you the headline here. Musk juggled drugs and family drama. So the piece does a lot on alleging drug use. It says he told people he was taking so much ketamine, a powerful anesthetic, that it was affecting his bladder, a known effect of chronic use. He took ecstasy and psychedelic mushrooms. It goes on. Same on the stuff related to the women who he's had relationships with. Interesting choice. And Sean, I don't believe the New York Times is in the pool today.
Well, they wouldn't have obviously known that. Yeah, I mean, I kind of am intrigued. It's sort of like, why now? Like, he's leaving, but I mean, again, it's silly to me in the sense that if you were really concerned about this, then you would have published that a month, 2 months, 3 months ago. So
yeah, maybe they didn't have the reporting together.
But as far as them not being in the pool, I mean, no one would have known that was coming out.
Right. All right. Sean already talked a bit about tariffs, and I'm not sure there's much more to say. This is going to play out over time. As of now, obviously, if you're a business owner or an exporter or an importer like George Costanza, you have to realize that there's even more uncertainty now because you don't know when the courts are going to act. But it seems like full steam ahead for it. I continue to say I care less about the court rulings and I care less about the administration's tactical adjustment to the rulings than I do about two things. Can they strike bilateral deals? And is the meeting going to take place this summer where the EU pays homage in Beijing to the murderous dictator Xi? So Dan, I don't think we need to spend much time on. Leave China aside because we'll get to it in a second. What's your general view of where we are on tariffs after yesterday's court activity and administration reaction?
I think probably just frustration that they can't get these deals, they can't start putting points on the board. And Sean and I have talked about this. These trade deals are hard. They take a long time. There's a lot of different audiences. And I think where the changing kind of the courts and everything impacts that is when you're doing a deal, you want a stable environment. And when there are all these variables that keep shifting, it just gives the other side more reason to pause, time out, let's see, let's figure this out. And so I think the longer it delays, the more pressure there is on Trump to put points on the board, because I think the big X date is back to school. If shelves if prices are going up for clothing, if shelves are starting to be empty for back to school supplies, like it's that psychological time you start thinking about, I need to buy a lot of stuff. I've just spent money on a summer vacation. The holidays are coming up, Halloween. I think that's the big between now and September.
Sean, before you go, let's listen to the U.S. Trade Rep, Mr. Greer, this morning on Squawk Box. This is number 106, please.
Do you think if you were to get emergency relief from the Supreme Court, you think they'd come down on the president's side? Do you think you have a strong case, or will it stand the way it is right now?
Well, I think we have a very strong case. Congress clearly delegated to the president the ability to take action when there's a national emergency. We've declared a national emergency. We've taken action. We have a stay from the circuit court right now. All the other countries I'm dealing with in negotiations are treating this as just kind of a bump in the road rather than any fundamental change. So I feel pretty confident about the case, and if the case, goes the other way, we have other tools as well.
Pretty accurate, not entirely accurate, because there's some countries that do have a different point of view based on the rulings. But Sean, thoughts?
I totally agree with him. Look, I think the court comes down, the Supreme Court, based on who the justices are and Jameson's right on this, that the court has, the Congress has largely delegated. You think back, if the court reverses this, I said this yesterday, you really have to start to think about you have an entire trade rep office within the executive office of the president because of this. And the IEPA, the delegation of emergency, you can argue whether it's an emergency or not, but the president has a right to declare when he did do it, and therefore he can use the tools in his toolbox to do it. So I think they have a strong case. And then secondly, as I've said all along, I think they should have done where I would have differed. I think his advisors were right to go down a 301 or 232 trade investigation case. I get it would have delayed the implementation of tariffs, but you would have been on a lot stronger ground. Nobody would have been able to say that you can't use those tools because they have a long history of being used. So he's right on that as well. So anybody who thinks that tariffs are going away, who thinks somehow if the court rules one way or another, this is going to stop, is just kidding themselves. They will pivot and use the other remedies at their disposal to do this. So that's the full stop. I will say one quick point that there's a Vincent in the chat made a point that I want to just go back to our Elon presser. I wouldn't be surprised to see President Trump surprise Elon with the Medal of Freedom today in the Oval Office.
Yep. I didn't know you read the chat, Sean. That's so interesting.
No, I glance.
Yeah.
I'm a strong glancer. I actually
Okay.
I have to read YouTube and the chat. It's everywhere.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. Okay. This whole thing is about China. I keep telling you, and it's not about China and economics. This whole thing is about China and security and the existential struggle against the Chinese. So let me set that up by showing you some things. Incredible Wall Street Journal story. If you're fortunate enough in the Biden-Trump age of inflation to be able to afford the Wall Street Journal, check out this story, filled 103, filled with charts about China versus the U.S. on economics and on military capability. Here's a couple of the economic charts. You can see GDP world total, see what it was in 2000, see what the gap is. It narrowed, and China's had a decline of late, but you can see how China from 2000 up to 20 really narrowed the gap. And then here's another one, 104, manufacturing value added. You can see in around 2008, China passed the United States and now is whooping Uncle Sam's behind. There's lots of charts in there about military capability. We're not going to show them to you because A, they're too many, and B, they're not as clear cut as this. But this is the backdrop for the competition. Now, last night on Bret Baier's show, Scott Bessent said something people in the administration rarely say, and you saw that with Mr. Greer. He acknowledged that the talks with China are not right on track. Here's Scott Bessent, 105, please.
And what about China? How can you characterize those talks now?
I would say that they are a bit stalled. I believe that we will be having more talks with them in the next few weeks, and I believe we may at some point have a call between the president and party chair Xi. I think that given the magnitude of the talks, given the complexity, that this is going to require both leaders to weigh in with each other. They have a very good relationship, and I am confident that the Chinese will come to the table when President Trump makes his preferences known.
Again, Ukraine, Russia is important, North Korea, Iran, the reconciliation bill, the midterms. There's lots of important stories, but this is it, guys. This is the whole thing, is this existential struggle with China. Here's the president moments ago on Truth Social 107, a long post about China making a lot of news. including in the conclusion. 2 weeks ago, China was in grave economic danger. The very high tariffs I set made it virtually impossible for China to trade into the United States marketplace, which is by far #1 in the world. We went, in effect, cold turkey with China and was devastating for them. All true, by the way. Many factories closed, and there was, to put it mildly, civil unrest. Also true. I saw what was happening. I didn't like it, and not so sure. For them, not for us. I made a fast deal with China in order to save them from what I thought was going to be a very bad situation, and I didn't want to see that happen. 50% true. Because of this deal, everything quickly stabilized, and China got back to business as usual. 80% true. Everybody was happy. 20% true. That is the good news. The bad news is that China, perhaps not surprisingly to some, has totally violated its agreement with us. So much for being Mr. Nice Guy. Sean, do you know what the president means when he says China has totally violated its agreement with us?
Clearly, there's something going on behind the scene. I mean, like, I think in terms of investment and think commitments that they made and aren't following through. And I will say the clip that you just played of Scott Bessent is a huge tell. When you're publicly talking about things not going well, and then that's and you know the president's watching it, that means that's sort of like when a hit used to come out by the mob. It was sort of it was what do they call it? A blessed hit or whatever. I mean, like this is a coordinated strategy to put China in a corner again and be like, hey guys, you're not following up. So whatever commitments they might have made during those talks, clearly Trump doesn't feel like they're following through.
Dan, thoughts?
I mean, that tweet to me was comical. I don't believe that he is. I do not believe that Donald Trump is a real Mr. Nice Guy who's thinking, boy, I poor sheep. It's just not going well for them. Let me really help them out. I mean, that to me is silly. But always project strength, always project control, always project on the verge of winning, right? And that tweet was just like the, defying gravity tweet to try to make people think things are going well. Look, China is a
signal to them, though, right? That's what he was. I mean,
but what is the signal? But the signal that the way I have read this whole entire thing is China is wobbly. I totally agree with you, Mark. They are experiencing real pain. We were experiencing real pain, and that is why
less. I think quantitatively less.
Well, I think what was happening.
We were anticipating.
I was going to say. I mean, we were on the verge, meaning CEOs were like, next week we are going to start to do A, B, C, and D, and so he backed off. Right? He got very nervous, or as he said, the yips.
But Trump bailed before there was serious pain in the U.S., but after there was serious pain in China that she knows could come back.
Oh, look, I believe it is mutually assured destruction if he were to go through. And so I think as a result, the Chinese, who always play the long game, they've never been reliable partners when it comes to trade ever, are slow walking it. They are probably violating. I mean, I would not be shocked whatsoever because they violated the WTO agreement within like a month, 20 years ago. So I'm sure Trump is frustrated because he wants he likes neat and clean victories, things that are easily digestible that he can point to and you feel in your life. And it's really hard with the Chinese because they know it. And to them, this is their moment on the world stage.
Sean, you and I are both braced for a Trump-Xi summit, but Bessent said phone call.
Well, the phone call will be I mean, there'll be some steps first.
Yeah, understood.
They're not, but this has got to happen. I mean, there has to be a meeting at some point soon, because that's the only way that it'll break through. And I think Trump is sort of he's sort of going, put me in, coach. Let's have this meeting. Let me sit and have dinner. I was there. We had that dinner at Mar-a-Lago in the first term. He wants this meeting. He wants to get Xi, sitting down and negotiating one-on-one, like all these other deals that he wants to have. So
I have a new prediction about where the summit will be, Dan, real quick. It's going to be in Singapore. Dan.
So Trump wants, he's so confident that get me in the room, I will achieve victory somehow. My sense is the Chinese are the complete opposite. They do not put Xi in a room unless they have a very good sense of what that outcome is going to be.
Correct.
He did go in January, and I think the Chinese were a little humiliated when he launched the missiles on Syria. I think it was Syria. and like kind of spiked the football in the Chinese face, and they were caught off guard, and there were photos of them kind of taken aback. And would China risk going into a meeting where we don't know and we're just going to lock the two together?
No, they're going to want.
That's where I see the problem for Trump. Wants to get in the room, and they're not going to do it.
What that list looks like. So China is going to want to say, okay, we're going to do these 5 things, and but I get it. I think that there's a very different dynamic now. But Trump wants the meeting. I think Xi will know how to obfuscate enough to get around any big things. But I still think at the end of the day that they're going to want to have this. They know. I mean, to your point about what China knows, they know that having that relationship is valuable to Trump. Trump values being able to say that he's got a strong relationship with Xi. So having a meeting, they realize, is also good for the relationship, i.e. good for long-term stuff, and as a way to take the temperature down on some things. So they do want it. I agree with you that they're very cautious about what they want to be able to be discussed, and they'll limit the scope, or think that they'll limit the scope of topics.
Yeah. All right, guys, we got a lot of hands up. So I'm going to do the last 2 topics rapid round, please. Governor Walz and Governor Moore are both speaking in South Carolina this weekend at the Clyburn Fish Fry. Governor Moore of Maryland has said he won't run for president. I take him at his word, just as I took Barack Obama for his word in 2006. Big mistake. They both also released very well-written excerpts from their remarks to Politico, a hallmark of thinking you're going to run for president, to go to the Clyburn Fish Fry and put out and write remarks and leak them. Okay. So that's all interesting. Let me ask you a question. Sean, if Tim Walz runs for president, what tier candidate would you make him within the context of the Democratic nomination fight? First, second, third, or fourth?
I think I'll be interested in Dan's take on this, because I by nature of being a 2-term governor and the VP, I guess you're considered tier 1. But I think that speaks volumes. If I will pray either that he or Kamala is the nominee.
Sean, we're in the rapid round. I'm just looking for a number.
So I'll say tier 1, but I don't know that I'm the right guy to ask. I don't.
I say respectfully, it's the craziest thing you've ever said on this show.
I know. I admit it. I agree with you. I don't have another place to put him.
Dan, what tier?
3. In the progressive wing, behind, I'd put JB Pritzker ahead of him, and I would put AOC and others ahead of him.
The correct answer is 3 if we're very generous.
Yeah.
He will not raise a dollar. No,
I'm gonna revise and extend my remarks.
Yeah.
I agree. I went first. I felt bad.
Okay. All right. Dan,
it's like Trump with Xi. You just felt bad.
Dan, if Westmore runs, I don't know what tier he'll be. He's the Clooney candidate. Will Westmore run for president in 2028? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Sean?
Yes.
I say no. Lastly, Pete Buttigieg went to Iowa.
Yeah.
Rahm is going to speak at the Fish Fry in the fall. Except for that, I see no reason to think that the Democrats will put Iowa back in the top tier on the calendar, maybe even in the top 4. And also, then I'll let them have a caucus. I don't think there are 4 caucuses. So my question to you, again, yes, no, Sean, is Iowa in play to be a first 4 state in 2028 for the Democrats? Is it in play?
I don't think so.
Okay, Dan.
No.
So why are Rahm and Pete going?
Cover their bases. Why? Because aside from us, most people think that it is or will be, and so it's sort of like you get credit.
Yeah, and you get more coverage.
Right. So people, it's like you associate, word association. Iowa, early, important state. Therefore, they get coverage. Yeah. It's like going to New Hampshire. It just reflexively gives you the media coverage.
But I also think somebody will push for Iowa. Like they'll go, if they think they're doing well, they'll push. Iowa should be first. Iowa should be first, and like try to create that, momentum. Yeah.
Of all the ways the Democrats might get over their obsession with identity politics, making Iowa an early state again just seems far-fetched to me. But I'm surprised. All right, Dan, winner of the week.
The group chat. We had a great launch. Things went well, and really excited for the future.
Awesome. Sean.
Perfect way to bring this up. The 2028 Republican nominee, because of what we just discussed. I look, and I'm not kidding, and I say this totally with respect. The idea that we're talking about Tim Walz, Pete Buttigieg, and Rahm Emanuel as if those are the potential top tier candidates says a lot about our prospects in 2028.
I almost put Gretchen Whitmer in there, Mrs. 63% approval. So watch what you said.
That's actually, yeah.
All right, we're going to get to your questions in a minute, so please raise your hand if you want to be on the conversation. By the way, this shirt from our friends at Fairway and Green, two things about it. One is it's made in America, not subject to tariffs. And the other is it may well say on the back, no smack in the chat. Please put in our chat how much you would pay for that shirt. If it said no smack in the chat in the back,
I see that.
made in America.
Can we do two versions? Two versions, please.
Yeah, there's with and with that. There's with and with that.
I like a good Navy shirt, by the way. This is the first one. I'm a big fan of their stuff, but I will say I like the Navy. I'm plain. I'm simple. I'm just a simple guy. I like the Navy. That's the first. Like I can pull it off. I can pull off.
But you don't want to walk through Northern Virginia with a shirt that says no smack in the chat on it.
I just don't like anything on the back. It's nothing to do with the phrase. It could just say my name and I'd still be anti. Like I'm anti bumper stickers. I'm anti things in the back. Like this is my thing.
Mark, who's your winner?
By the way, you didn't. I'm going to see if they'll make you one that says "kick me."
I'm telling you, it can't say anything. Nothing. Nothing in the rear view.
Yeah, mine's the same as yours, Dan. You and your colleagues at the group chat are the winners of the week with an incredible launch, and we couldn't be happier. All right, Sean, loser of the week.
Tie. Harvard University and Brigitte Macron. I think she is the loser of the week.
Why is that?
She's the winner of the week, man.
No, look, I will just say this. I know we didn't talk about it at the time, so I saved it just in case it didn't come up. I think that for all of the talk that over the last few years about how people have been treated and calls for violence, I really thought that it was like how that went down and how there wasn't more outrage was disappointing, because I think that we've always said, whether it's political violence or otherwise, that it's not acceptable. And to give that a pass, which is what I think it got, was not acceptable in my book.
Dan.
Okay. Loser of the week, Steny Hoyer. I think he's getting primaried, and the guy in his announcement was pretty darn direct that at 85 or 86 years old, he's too old. He shouldn't be there. And nobody envisioned somebody that age serving them. I mean, that's right on offense. And I don't believe Steny Hoyer has the energy to mount a full-throated campaign.
Loser of the week is CBS News. They've been a shell of their former self pretty much my entire career. They've been living off the fumes of Mike Wallace and Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite. And they're now watching as their reputation is just shattered by their corporate owners in a way that is hideous over the commonplace practice of editing an interview for a magazine piece.
Can I just say this, Mark? I mean, there's a bigger thing, right? CBS, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but the Washington Post meltdown, and I know, again, it didn't get a lot of coverage, but Jonathan Capehart's attack on a fellow member of the staff there and watching them go in, it's really unbelievable, these legacy outlets, how they're sort of blowing up from inside out. CBS obviously very concerned about Sherry Redstone's action, but Jonathan Capehart, blue on blue, going after a member of his own editorial team there at the Washington Post. It's amazing to watch all of this.
Sean, if you check your host manual, you'll see that you're not allowed to name 3 losers of the week.
I didn't. I just made a comment.
Oh, okay. Sean, what are you watching for this weekend?
Elizabeth McDonough.
What is that?
Oh, the Senate parliamentarian.
That was a quiz and damn fact.
Is she ruling this weekend?
I think that she's not probably, but I think that's what I think. There's a lot of discussion. This is, to me, the key to the big beautiful bill. If she rules current policy isn't what in bounds for the bird rule, like this is it. This is the game. People have to I named her because next week people will start to talk about her. But if you don't know who Elizabeth McDonough is, the Senate parliamentarian, whether or not John Thune would overrule her, which was done Bob Dole era, and whether or not it is within bounds in terms of the bird rule for reconciliation, this is the game that if you care about whether or not this bill gets through, that's it.
Dan. Yeah, by the way, I think in the Obamacare, she issued a ruling on a Saturday night. So that's actually an interesting idea. Come on. Game 6, Saturday night, Indiana. That's it.
You think Indiana will win? Good. All right, we got it.
For those of you who like the show more when the hosts are in a good mood, you should be rooting hard for the Knicks, because Dan and I will come in Monday morning in a very bad mood. And I don't really care about sports anymore, but this team, there's something about this team.
Oh man,
It's made me care.
Baseball
It's made me care again.
Baseball
Made me
season.
care. Yeah. All right. Welcome in, everybody. As always, peace, love, and understanding should be emanating from your mouth the way, like on a cold winter day, there'd be frost coming out. And extend the presumption of grace to everybody here. And we start, of course, with Charles. Charles in Charge. Greatest shows in the history of television.
Yeah.
Scott Baio.
Yes,
That was he was born for the role. Charles, welcome in. Thank you for joining.
Nicole Eggert, by the way,
Yeah.
I love that show.
Yeah. Tell folks not only where you are, Charles, but a little bit about that clock and then what's on your mind.
Oh, thanks for taking my question. I'm from Connecticut, moved to New Hampshire 5 or 6 years ago.
Where in New Hampshire?
Seacoast area, little town called Newmarket.
I was going to ask where in Connecticut.
It's a beautiful Newmarket's beautiful and
Little town named Ridgefield.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. I lived in Wilton for years.
Charles,
Okay.
you have good taste. Where's that clock? What do you know about that clock?
That clock was made by a father of a good friend of ours from our college days. And when he passed away, she passed it on to us because we always admired it.
It's beautiful. It's
So
beautiful.
handmade. Thanks.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
What's on your mind, sir? And thank you for being part of Two Way.
Yeah, so I went and I watched the Megyn Kelly interview with Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson based on your recommendation, Mark. And then I watched the Ezra Klein interview as well. And I thought there were three things that came out that I haven't heard you guys address that was his defense that I thought was pretty damning. And so let me list the three things I heard him say. One is he said the debate where Biden was not Biden, if we can say it that way, I guess, trying to be generous, gave them permission to question his capabilities. And
So
I thought
let me-
that was very,
Charles,
that's-
I'll stop you on that one. On my show, I took the worst moments of the debate, and then I found previous instances on camera in public where Biden displayed the exact same traits. So anyone who says the debate was somehow a watershed, it's ridiculous. Everything he did, trailing off, using the wrong word, glassy-eyed, mouth in a certain way. It's a farce to say the debate was some sort of watershed.
Yeah, no, 100%. What I was drawing out, though, that is he needed permission to ask the questions.
Yes.
Oh, I see what you're
I
saying.
thought
Well,
that was
again,
a damning defense.
it's damning because of what I said. You didn't need the debate because it was all on display vividly for years.
I agree, Mark. Your point's exactly right. Which is that there are other instances. I think what Charles is pointing at is so beautiful because it was like they needed permission, and that was the phrase that he used, as if you shouldn't. Why did you need permission for anything? You're a reporter. You're supposed to report, not need permission. I love the point.
I'd like to hear the rest of Charles' 2 points.
Yeah, number two. Yeah, we're getting them. We're just taking them we're taking them in order. Charles,
Okay,
number two.
Okay.
He also said when you raised the questions, it felt like you were burning all your relationships in the White House.
Did he really say that? I didn't hear him say that. Did he really?
He did.
Well, look, 25% of it, 75% was they wanted to help Biden win. 25% was if you did it, as some people did, including, ironically, the co-author of the book, you risked having your sources cut you off. The New York Post reporter did it, and the New York Post reporter was no longer allowed to go to open press events. I've said this before. When that happened to the Associated Press in the Trump administration, it's considered by the media a constitutional crisis. When they did it to the oldest newspaper in the United States, the third top circulating paper, I believe, in the United States, the press corps didn't mention it at all. So it's true that is undercovered in the book, ironically, even though they're touting it now as an excuse. There's not enough in the book about the threats made to reporters by the Biden people.
Yeah, and valuing the relationship more than doing his job.
Yeah. And as I think you're suggesting, it's another extraordinary admission of guilt, because how could a reporter say that they pulled their punches because they didn't want to threaten their relationships? It's disgusting and outrageous, and it's malpractice, and and again, it's not just true of them. I give them credit for at least talking about it. Go into any Washington newsroom, Washington Post, New York Times, ABC, CBS, filled with people who pulled their punches in part for that reason.
Agree. And then the third one was, they said, if the administration lies to you, there's really only so much you can do. And I think Woodward and Bernstein might have a different view of that, right? Is that your job is to find out who's lying. It's to assume they're lying and figure out what the truth is. And he was just flummoxed of, if they lie to you, there's really just not much you can do.
Orange man bad. When the White House press secretary's explanation for why the president spoke to a dead congresswoman was the congresswoman was top of mind for the president because he was thinking a lot about her, as if that explains why he talked to a dead person. It should have brought the White House briefing room to a halt. Trump wasn't president then. There was a president, and he had suffered serious and obvious decline. He also had some really good days where he ran the country, but he had really bad days. And again, it's just so incredible to me that people would say that. So incredible that they would say that.
His defense is quite a conviction
Yeah.
of how he did his job. And I agree with
Yeah.
you, how many others did.
Yeah, many others. Many others. Dan, Sean, want to comment on Charles's
I
excellent?
think you said it pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could go on for 2 hours on this whole subject.
Yeah.
I think I got a call from a viewer yesterday who said, there's a sense that this book is more of a cover up of itself, like, of why, and it's also a distraction, right? So you think about all of the stuff that happened at the end of the Biden administration, and it's almost now we're talking about that as opposed to it's about what, the Hunter Biden stuff from the Biden Inc. stuff. Like this has been a distraction and a cover up of some of the other issues.
I also
Charles,
just think,
go
Charles, you
ahead, Dan.
can't underestimate the fact that most of these journalists all live in Northwest DC, kind of, Montgomery County. Like they live in the same areas. Their kids go to the same schools. They socialize with each other. And if you are the skunk at the garden party, it's uncomfortable for your whole family, not just for you. And so there is, which is also why they all knew exactly what was happening. But like, that's one of the reasons that it's like no one wants to be they all want to be the cool kid.
Charles, how do you feel about the fact that Jake Tapper has the #1 New York Times bestselling book in the country?
I think it's good that this is coming out because it wasn't covered in the mainstream media. And so I think that's helpful, but I agree with Sean. I think it's a complete distraction and a diversion trying to shift the blame to the Biden administration and people in the White House without actually dealing with the media's role in it.
Yeah.
Well said, Charles.
I will say, and so the last thing I'll say on the Charles is I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, I guess, but for me, it's actually kind of a personal issue because of so many, talked about Trump folks lying and doing all this stuff, and they don't talk about their own lying and their own misinformation. It's amazing to me, and I think not just the folks in the media, like this writer of the book, but also, look at Mark brought up Karine Jean-Pierre. I have been pilloried from one part of the globe to the other for things that I said, and yet no one has mentioned Karine Jean-Pierre's role in this cover-up. She lied to the American people over and over again about his fitness for office, and nothing. Where's the concern about her role, her complicity? And I just, as a former press secretary who has taken some well-deserved, some shots, I made plenty of mistakes, so I'm not backing away from that. But I suffered the consequences of that. And then Karine Jean-Pierre and Jen Psaki both lied to the American people and continue to do so about what they saw. And no consequence there whatsoever.
Charles, if I have 3 dying words, they'll be like next. But if I get 4, it'll be live free or die.
Real question is let's go Knicks forwards because it's in a
yeah, it is 3 words. Charles, that's how apostrophes work. Charles, very grateful to you for joining. I hope you'll come back.
Thank you.
And welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind, please. And thank you for being a part of two-way.
Thanks. So it's the first time. I've been watching you since before, and I'm in Northern California.
Thank you for getting up early.
Yeah, it makes me nervous. But anyway, so I just wanted to say, I don't have any question today, but I just wanted to say how this show has been such a lifesaver for me emotionally during the pre-election time. It popped up on my YouTube thing, and I just hooked on. And because I was teaching, I, couldn't watch it all the time, but I tried to stream it the rest of the day. But I just wanted to thank you, Mark, for doing this. It really, I don't know, it makes me emotional, but I just got attacked because I voted for Trump. And it was really dramatic. And being in the education system, there's a lot of people that don't see it the way I do. And I wasn't touting, who I voted for, but it was just such a negative, environment. And so I just want to thank you for having this platform. And it popped up well before the election, so I just watched every day. I mean, I was bummed that Saturday and Sunday you weren't on because it just comforted me. It was like a comfort. I don't know. I don't know why I'm emotional, but it just was a comfort to me. My husband's like, "Are you on there again?" And yeah, so I could catch it a little bit, and then I have to get ready to go. I substitute teach now because I retired. But anyway, so thank you.
And thank you for that. Really kind. One comment and then one question. If you want the show on Saturday and Sunday, you're gonna have to talk to my son about that.
No, don't work that much.
He's not keen. The other thing is, in the past, have you voted for all Republicans for president, or did you previously vote for Democrat? Yeah.
No, I have. I mean, I grew up in, San Francisco Bay Area with a liberal family. So, I had all that influence. But since, coming to know Christ many, many years ago, I just voted my conscience. So it mostly ended up always being Republican. But yeah, it's a delight. And now that we're past the election time, then all these other new shows, I'm just checking them out and seeing.
All right. Well, I urge you to check them all out. We'll promote some of them as well as Dan's show in a minute. But Ann, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being part of Two-Way. Very grateful to you.
By the way, Ann, thanks for staying. I know you mentioned you're retired and staying in, so thanks for continuing to substitute teach. We need good people in the system that are continuing, and I appreciate you continuing to give back. So thank you.
Yeah, well, this year was unique because I committed to teaching with the deaf and hard of hearing because I'm a deaf educator. And so I took a whole year commitment, not knowing it was going to end up being a whole year, but it's done now and I have to rest. I'm 72 and I'm tired, but it's good. So I'm glad I could be useful. So you're welcome.
Very grateful to you. Thank you, Ann.
Sure.
Okay.
I just, when Ann was talking, I know some people have emotional support animals. I think we can now be branded as an emotional support show.
I agree. Barry, welcome in. Unmute, please. Tell folks, well, you're in Seattle-ish.
Yeah, I'm going to say West Coast Day.
Yeah. Good morning. I just want to say one thing about what Ann just said. I'm the same in Washington. I try to talk to people about this show and they're like, no, we won't support anybody that says anything nice about Trump. Still, the connecting the dots just won't end. But what I mostly wanted to talk about was China. Originally, my very first question I ever was able to ask on Two-Way was my Schoolhouse Rock question of how all of this works. I really don't know much about China, our relationship with China. I know I'm close to 60, so I know some things from my childhood. My dad worked for Boeing and went to China in the 70s, and I don't know much. So for someone like me that wants to know about China, I do not want to go back to the beginning because I know there's a lot of history. How would you suggest I learn about China other than asking ChatGPT? That's my question.
Guys, is that Bishop newsletter? Does that cost a lot of money? Anybody know?
No.
There's a guy named Bill Bishop who writes a newsletter about China. I don't read it regularly, but people send it to me sometimes. I would check that out because people whose opinions I trust about China swear by it. They say it's just the best thing. So I would definitely read that. And then the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times have great coverage of China. I'd recommend that. And then another thing that costs a lot of money, but I recommend, and I've not recommended it very much on this program, John Ellis writes a newsletter, a daily newsletter on Substack, and it's extraordinary, widely read by people who have professional interest in China. It's about the whole world, but a heavy focus on China, and he aggregates and summarizes the best stories. So those are all things that cost money, unfortunately. But if you want to keep up with China, those four things are the four I'd recommend. Dan, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to get an accurate picture of what's happening there. I mean, even the statistics and stuff that government puts out, they'll change, they'll stop them. So I don't know. There's actually something that sometimes when we have dinner with friends who are in the investment community, they are constantly searching for ways to learn about what is really happening in China. So if you get good recommendations that you find good, please post and let us know.
Is it important to know the past to know the present?
Oh, sure, always. I believe. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Barry, there's someone in the chat months ago recommended the 100-Year Marathon by Michael Pillsbury. I think it's excellent. Based on the recommendations in the chat, I bought it. It's a really good history and understanding of the challenges and threats that we face.
Thanks. Yeah, when my dad went to China in the 70s with Boeing, Boeing gave him this pamphlet of these are the things you cannot do in China, and if you do them and you are arrested, Boeing cannot help you. And one of them included chewing gum. That
I
was
would have hated that.
my entree into a country like that and control and all of that. Those are the things I take from my childhood. Never learned anything about China and my education, public school, college, anything like that. So I appreciate it.
I'll
So,
tell you, China.
go
Go ahead. Go
Mark,
ahead.
it's in the chat. I just looked it up. You mentioned Bill Bishop. He does have a Substack that appears to be free. So if you're interested, if you want to take Mark's recommendation, and someone just put it in the chat, but it's available for, it looks available for free. So I will.
I think there may be a free version and a paid version, but
Great.
it's very good. Barry, I'll tell you, I've been to China twice, and both times, every time I left my hotel room, people went in there either to search it or plant listening devices. So it's a crazy place.
I have a
Crazy.
girlfriend that has a company. She doesn't manufacture in China anymore. She moved manufacturing to India. But as a woman-owned business in China, she wanted to see her manufacturing plant and everything. The amount of alcohol consumed, it was some little tonic in like a thimble. But everywhere she went, she was offered this drink, and
Yeah.
all her handler was like, "Do not drink that. Do not drink that."
Yeah. Amazing.
I
you
mean,
know,
the moment you fly in there, they tap your phones, and there's a thing that they do for congressional staff when they go, where they'll say, "Turn your phone off, like power it down, turn it off, put it in your pocket," and they'll have a conversation with them about what to expect, and they'll say, "Turn it on," and they've recorded the entire conversation with your phone, thinking it's off because they infiltrate your phone once you come into their airspace. I mean, they play to win.
It's a crazy place. Barry, thank you for coming on. Grateful to have you here. Wink, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks where you are, what that background is, who made the shirt, lots of stuff we need before you can even get underway.
Who made the shirt? I think it was Cole's.
Nice.
I don't know.
I like it.
I'll tell you what, this is a much better experience on Zoom than it is on YouTube. I'm not getting interrupted every 5 seconds for a commercial. But
welcome in.
I've been most of my life a leadership coach. And one of the things that I notice in all of these discussions, there seems to be a lack of a leadership lens. Most everything you do is political, and I understand that, and that's what you do best. And I'll say this, the three of you are best in the business. I give you high marks on I've been watching the show about 6 months. But to understand what's happening, I think, and this is just my 2 cents, to understand what's happening with the Democrat Party and with Trump, you need to take a leadership lens. Back in 1960s, about 62, a book came out that was written by one of Jack Kennedy's group. And it was on leadership. I think that was the title of the book. And there was a warning put in there that if the Democrat Party doesn't change the march toward uniformity instead of unity, they would lose their leadership base. And that march has gone on. And I think what you see now, the reason they're floundering so much, trying to find a leader to break them out, they have taken a Japanese approach of if the nail sticks up, pound it down. And they want everybody to speak the same, talk the same. It's comical to watch the newscasts all use the same verbiage, language. I don't know who sends out the memo, but it's one of those things. And I'd just like to hear your input on this. The great William Randolph Hearst, when he was invited to a dinner party, he said this. They asked him, where would you like to sit? Would you like to sit at the head of the table? And his response was, and I think you all may know the answer to this, but wherever I sit is the head of the table. And that's a leadership perspective. There are only 3% of this country that are true leaders. If you've been in leadership at all, at any time, only 3% of this country makes up the leadership base. And if you don't cultivate new leaders continually, and not worry about them being uniform, if you don't cultivate the leaders, they will go elsewhere. Trump is what you call a super leader. And I hear Dan talk about putting points on the board. He doesn't care about putting points on the board. He leads, polls follow. He really doesn't care what he's the goal. That's all a leader has in mind is the goal. It's damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. He raises tariffs on everybody. Everybody goes, oh, he's going to kill himself. Oh, this is the worst thing. He doesn't care. He doesn't care.
All right,
Leaders pursue the goal. Okay.
I'd love, we're just, that's okay. We're just getting a short time. I want Sean and then Dan to comment on what you said. So thank you for that, Sean.
I'll just keep it. I'm fascinated with leadership. I've dealt with it almost 27 years in the military, and then obviously in politics and whatever. I think it's a great subject. I'm glad you brought it up. It's something that you could do a whole show on, just because how people run a meeting, how they lead, how they listen to others and ingest information is something I'm always fascinated by, because in the military, it's a rank structure, right? So you get a leader regardless of whether you want it or not. Sometimes they're really good and sometimes they're bad. And the qualities that make a good leader versus somebody who just became a leader are very different. And so it's a great subject you're bringing up. I wish we had more time to discuss it.
Dan.
I totally agree with Sean. I'll respectfully, I think I see Trump a little bit differently, but I hear what you're saying. I think one of Trump's leadership strengths is he persists. He fights. He does not give up, and he is relentless in his pursuit of the goal, right? Even when it is like trying to bend reality to what I would say are facts to kind of say are not facts type of thing, I give him credit. He is just relentless. And I think there's an admiration from some people who vote for him that he fights and he doesn't stop. So, I agree. Leadership is the ball game. You can tell a good leader from those who are not.
Yes.
Wink, thank you for coming on. Very grateful to you. And thank you for being a part of Two Way. Sean, what do you have tonight?
The McLaughlin brothers, Jim and John, together. And the cool thing is they've two polls, one that they did for the Club for Growth on battleground congressional districts where they talked about the big, beautiful bill. And secondly, they have their battleground, their sort of national poll that they just came out with as well. And it's interesting. I actually have already made some notes from the People's Poll about issues that came up and whether or not, what members of Congress. So I'm excited to get both of them. It's like Janet and Michael Jackson, never in the same room together. You get Jimmy, you get John, never together. Tonight, it's going to be epic.
I'm far too polite to tell you the first time they appeared on TV together.
I think not.
Dan, what are you doing tonight?
I am, I think, going to be on with Laura Ingraham and then taking my wife out to celebrate her birthday that was yesterday.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
Meghan McCain will be on the platform at noon with a special Friday episode. Her guests, former Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Anne Marie Wiley, and Jonathan Greenblatt, CEO of the Anti-Defamation League. I can say with some confidence that they've never been on any shows together, but that personifies Meghan's eclectic taste. So join Meghan at noon. Then tonight, also on Two Way tonight at 6. Well, sorry, at 4. I forgot. Ethan's at 4. Random Offense. Ethan Strauss. If you haven't sampled Ethan's show yet, if you don't know who Ethan is, he's an incredible talent. He's just such an interesting guy. He used to cover the Golden State Warriors. He's a sports guy, but he's a culture guy, a politics guy. Incredibly fascinating. And his guest, Ryan Duffy, who somebody's going to remind me. Ryan Duffy was on Vice. Am I right about that? Or was Ryan Duffy?
He was also on ESPN
Vice.
Radio, I thought.
ESPN Radio.
You
and
are
of course,
right. Yes.
And a correspondent
Vice
for Vice. So please, if you haven't, check out Ethan's show. And then at 6, I'll be on Two Way tonight, and we'll have full coverage of the Trump press conference and his event in Pennsylvania. Now, our guest canceled. That happens. If you'd like to be the guest tonight, you can. If you just give me a ticket to Game 7, it's simple. We do pay to play here. We do it shamelessly, openly, with knowledge of the criticism we might come under. But if you'd like to be the guest for the full hour, you can cut. You know what? You can substitute host if you want.
If there's no section though, then that's a pretty you gotta at least, I would up the game. You got to be 200 or below.
Oh, I have to be able to get the attention of Chalamet with my hand. I have to be able to wave where you can plausibly see me.
Do you know, I took one of the kids to Game 7 last year when the Knicks got blown out. We were up. We didn't even have like seats. They're like bar stools on the top of the guard. So you can't get any higher.
I know those seats.
Best time ever.
I'm scared of heights. I don't know that I could pull that off.
Sean, I did like your caveat, but I think it's implicit that if someone wants to,
for the legal reasons though, I just wanted to be clear.
If someone wants to guest co-host one of the granddaddies of them all, the venerable institution of 2 tonight, in exchange for a simple sports ticket, obviously it needs to be a pretty good.
I think you'd have to pay taxes on it though, because the price of that's going to be over the de minimis amount. But
thank you all for watching. We'll be back Monday morning, 9 a.m. And again, Megan at noon, Ethan at 4, and myself at 6 p.m. all Eastern time. And we'll see you then. And three of us will see you Monday. Have a great day and a great weekend.
Great week, everybody.